When I left Oxford, Mississippi, I took my boyfriend Alex with me. Now, he's never read Faulkner. He's a finance major. As we were standing at the front door, it seemed awkward to actually open it without knocking, but it's no longer a house, it's a museum. And when we walked inside, there was a guy standing in the front entryway, and then the clerk for the museum. And she, of course, asked for the $5 from each of us to pay to see the museum. So I extended my credit card, and immediately she said that they only accept cash. It was as if we were being sucked back in time. It reminded me of a passage from around page 212 in The Sound and the Fury, when Jason is withholding, quote-unquote, $10 from Miss Quinton, when in fact we don't know actually how much that cashier's check was. But $10, that's what we needed to see the museum. So the gentleman that was standing in this entryway offers to pay for us. He says that we shouldn't miss out on this experience. He hands over the cash and says, buy someone a beer, kind of a pay it forward. And when we left Georgia, we left Thursday morning, and Wednesday during spring break was the big Georgia storms with thunder and power outages, flooding, absolutely horrible and gray and dark. But when we got to Oxford, it was super sunshiny. It was like we had gone on the absolute perfect day. I didn't know what we were supposed to be taking in. I didn't know what I was expecting to see when we got there. So a particular passage from As I Lay Dying on page 44 came to my mind. When he's describing Addie's gaze, this dead lady's gaze. She looks at us. Only her eyes seem to move. It's like they touch us, not with sight or sense, but like the stream from a hose touches you. The stream, at the instant of impact, as disassociated from the nozzle as though it had never been there. So as I was looking around, I felt like my eyes were going to be that stream from the hose. And at the moment of impact, little droplets, fly everywhere. Everything splashes. And that was definitely me, looking everywhere. Looking at his library was a bit of a shock. You think author, writer, and he has a library, that there would be a lot more books. Every single room in the house had a fireplace, I swear. They must have been toasty 100% of the time. Besides the museum workers, me and Alex were the only ones walking through William Faulkner's house. So every footstep was just this huge echo, this creak you can hear almost like the hollow of the floorboards as you're walking through the house. Estelle's room was one of my favorites. I especially loved the amount of windows in her room. You can definitely imagine her sitting and looking out the windows and painting. When I saw all the bottles that were originally found on the grounds, I had to laugh because I imagined if those were found, scattered on the lawn, as if maybe he had tossed them in the yard in some sort of angry fit. I had to laugh too when I saw the Mac computers upstairs, something so modern in an extremely old house. As we were driving to Oxford, we saw a bunch of really beautiful houses, but the fact that Rowan Oak had such a huge plot of land, it was almost like a park, and they even have it set up almost like a park. As we first entered, we actually saw someone leaving. They were toting a hammock, and there's a picnic table set on the grounds. And I imagined if I lived a little bit closer, if I would try and come and have a picnic at William Faulkner's house. They had several lawn chairs kind of scattered around everywhere. And I imagined how awesome it would be if we could just have class in William Faulkner's backyard, sitting in this kind of roundabout fashion, enjoying the breeze. As we started leaving the grounds, our trip definitely wasn't over. In a previous class, I had read The Deep South by Paul Thoreau, and since we were coming this far, in the words of Forrest Gump, we thought we'd go just a little bit further to Money, Mississippi. I had read this travelogue in a previous class, and he made it a point to travel to the poor, kind of rural aspects, these rural parts of the Deep South, kind of traveling on the lesser known highways. And we ultimately, our class kind of collectively kind of came to the conclusion that we didn't really like this author very much. To kind of depict the Deep South as just these rural, kind of poor parts didn't seem to fully encompass what makes up the Deep South. And a lot of his language seemed to be baiting at one of the problematic aspects of the South, these kind of racial tensions. Any conversation he had, it seemed to be baiting, searching for that. And to do that as an outsider was kind of problematic. And so, and at the end of this collection, at the end of this book, Thoreau includes some photographs, one of which is him in front of the Bryant store, and I always kind of found the picture troubling. I didn't think his face belonged in the picture of the ruins of the Bryant store. So we went about 2 hours further by the time that we got there, searching for the ruins of the Bryant store, not exactly having an address, and it led us to a very barren part of land, a lot of farmland, and I guess nothing was in season because it was all dead. So we got onto Money Road and kept driving for maybe 20 minutes, and we actually passed it. I don't know what I was looking for. I guess I expected it to jump out at us, but it was actually very small. We went right past it, turned back around, came back, and finally found it. The building right next to it is actually very new looking, almost restored. My boyfriend thought that restored looking building was the restored Bryant store, and I was kind of outright raged at the idea that they would restore something that I felt almost needs to be torn down. We walked around the building, and of course it was ruins. It was old, covered in vines, and it was very surreal to think almost 70 or so years ago, Emmett Till was alive and here. And it seemed wrong that the building was still standing, even though Emmett wasn't. Thoreau actually made a stop at Rowan Oak, and he had some words on Faulkner. He actually dedicated a whole section, an interlude, he titles it, and he titles it The Paradoxes of Faulkner. And he has this to say: "It is a measure of how well Faulkner knew the mind of rural Southerners that people who have never read him are able to paraphrase his sentiments. They may not have known his stories, but many people I met were living his narratives and could easily have fitted themselves into his fictions."